anybody who's new to our Creative Women's Coffees, thank you so much for joining. We have a Q&A button on the bottom of the screen that you're welcome to hit anytime throughout the conversation. If you have a question, do not hesitate to ask. So Sherri's a wealth of information. She has been had her namesake boutique for over a decade. She can share some inside secrets. So definitely feel free to ask. Jessie Randall, hello. You're one of our best supporters. And without further ado, we'll kick it off. So I still see a few more people joining. As a friendly reminder, we do record these, and this will go be posted to our website and our Instagram this weekend for any of your friends or family who miss it and might like to watch. So without further ado, Sherri, welcome.
Yay.
One of the biggest perks, as Lizzie was just starting to say, of owning and operating a brand like ours is the relationships that have come out of it. So it's the relationships with customers, it's the relationships with fellow buyers, the relationships with fellow designers. And the buyer relationship is really special because sometimes you just have the professional buyer relationship where you see each other twice a year and it's just very much an acquaintance relationship. But other times you get this really special situation where you become really, truly good friends with somebody and support each other in all kinds of ways. So that might mean late night dinners with wine and talking about both life and kids and business in Paris. Yeah. That means Sherri getting on an airplane to fly across country during a non-market time to celebrate our 10-year anniversary 2 years ago. That means that Lizzie and I never go visit our brother in San Francisco without also visiting Sherri. So we've really built an amazing relationship, and we've worked together since 2011, which it's kind of like dog years. That feels like a century when it comes to a buying relationship. So Sherri's been extremely supportive through the ups and downs. And today we're here to talk about how she built her business. So we've got a lot of great questions, but feel free to chime in.
Absolutely. So Sherri, to kick it off, we are always so curious about how people get started in the very beginning. It's something that we get asked a lot, and I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs on the Zoom right now, or aspiring entrepreneurs who want to know, in the beginning, how did you know how to find a contact information for a new fashion line that you wanted to pick up? How did you get the money to even pay rent in the beginning? Can you walk us through those very early days?
Sure. Well, thank you, Catherine and Lizzie, for having me. I'm so happy to be here. And I mean, it really is rare to have a relationship that spans this long between a buyer and a designer. So I'm really fortunate in that way to have this friendship with you. So when I started, I opened McMullen in 2007. And I'll even go before I even opened the store. So I started even thinking back, just going back to my college years. I studied business in school, very much like you, Catherine, who did business before going into this creative role. So I studied accounting. And then after graduating from accounting, I realized that I didn't really want to sort of crunch numbers all day. I wanted to do something more in the creative space. I grew up in Oklahoma, so I wasn't really exposed to much in terms of the industry itself. But I always loved fashion. Like my first job when I was 16 was working at Limited Express. And I always had this curiosity of the behind the scenes. And I knew that there was a way that product got into the stores, but I didn't know that there was actually a career that you can make out of it. So fast track to after college, graduating, I moved to Dallas. And I heard about this program called the Executive Development Program. And it was at Neiman Marcus, where they essentially teach you about buying. So I heard about this program. I was like, a buyer? Okay, this is exactly what I thought. This is a way to sort of determine what gets into the stores, but also using my business skills. And I think so many times people think of this idea of being a buyer as this very glamorous job. It's you're picking out product every day and you're in this glamorous world, but it is so much about business. Yeah. So I was able to use my business skills from accounting and apply those to buying. So I started in this program and I became an assistant buyer and then sort of worked my way up, was promoted to associate buyer, and this was in Dallas at the time, to come out to open the Pottery Barn Kids stores. So at the time it was just an idea And I was brought on to sort of create this brand, which was really exciting. So I packed up my bags in my early 20s and I moved from Dallas and moved to San Francisco. Had only been in San Francisco one other time before, but I fell in love. I was like, I'm moving to California, you know, this Oklahoma girl. And I fell in love with the Bay Area, but I was, you know, really working hard to create something for this company. I was traveling a lot internationally. And then I had this desire to really create something for myself. So at the time I started writing a business plan. I moved to Oakland because all my friends were in Oakland and they would never visit me in San Francisco. They were like, you live too far. I lived in this area called the Marina, which it was like far. So I ended up moving to Oakland and I found that like people were traveling. We were traveling from Oakland to San Francisco or the outskirts to shop, but there wasn't like a luxury boutique or specialty store in Oakland. And I thought, okay, this is where I want to open my store. So in 2007, I found this space. I had a business plan that I had been writing while I was like working like crazy and started envisioning what I would create for my business. And I had storyboards. My friends would come over and we'd have wine and I'd cook dinner for them. And after like bottles of wine, I'd pull out my storyboards. And, you know, they're like, oh, Sherri's pulling out the storyboards again. But I had this strong desire to really create something for myself. So in 2007, I opened. Yeah, I mean, I found this space. You're asking about sort of capital and how that came about. I was not financially prepared to open. And I had some savings and I was able to open with getting a friends and family loan, $50,000 from, you know, people who really believed in me and wanted to support me. So they gave me $50,000, not gave me, they loaned me $50,000 that I paid back in 3 years with interest. And then I used a big chunk of my savings and then I opened and I was like, I'm gonna make this work. And I didn't do it with a big budget, obviously. I was really honing in on creating this brand and really focusing like, I'm gonna put my money not into like fancy fixtures, like I'm gonna create a beautiful space, but I'm gonna do it in a way that is really economical. I'm gonna go to thrift stores and antique stores and I'm gonna find fixtures that way. I had my friends coming over and hanging fixtures with me while I fed them like pizza and wine. And you just make it work with a very small budget. And that's how it came to be. And that was in 2007.
I love that scrappy approach. And it's one that Catherine and I often take. We talk about how our first 2 years of going to Paris, Catherine wouldn't let us take taxis from the airport to downtown where our apartments were that we had rented. And so like we would have all our samples in huge trunks and neck forms and everything. And she would make us schlep them on the metro because she was like, we can't afford the taxis. So we fully relate to that. One question I have is, obviously you can go to an antique store and get a fixture or whatever, but in terms of actually acquiring the clothes, was it hard to get in touch with the brands that you wanted to carry? Because you've always been a luxury store. A lot of these brands have high minimums. They say, oh, you can only carry us if you also carry X, Y, and Z lines. But when you start, you don't have any lines. So how do you kick that process off?
You know, I think I was really fortunate that I had a background in buying. So that gave me sort of instant legitimacy in terms of like going to designers and saying, this is my mini bio. I worked at Neiman. So they knew that I understood the buying process and it wasn't like a hobby for me. And it was actually a career. And this is something that I was really passionate about doing. When we started, or when I opened the business in 2007, store was a mix. So we were truly a contemporary business. So our brands were Diane von Furstenberg and Rebecca Taylor, Catherine Malandrino, Tibby I've had from the beginning. who else did we, Rag and Bone. We had La Florando ready to wear. I know Jesse's on. So we were truly like a contemporary store, but then it was also finding those smaller brands that I would find. I would go to LA and I would go to market and find this like cool denim brand, you know, like cool high-waisted flared jeans. And they only specialized in that kind of style. Or I'd find these brands like Development that was, I think that was Philip Lim's line before he started Philip Lim, and then it was someone else took it over. But those like smaller niche, I mean, so like there's so many favorites that I just going back thinking about a lot of those brands sadly are not around anymore, especially the smaller ones.
Were there
so much?
Were there brands in the beginning that you were dying to have that wanted you to see more of a track record from you first, or from the get-go were you able to acquire most of the brands that you wanted to have in the store?
I was able to get most of the brands in the beginning. The minimums, I think during that time, people knew if you're a small brand, you want to start out, you can't do $10,000 minimums. It's like, I want to buy you and support your brand, but I also want to grow with you. And I don't want to have a lot of markdowns. I want to be able to like sell through the product at full price and move on to the next season. So the minimum thing, I didn't feel it back then at all. I feel like that came a little later.
The world's changed a lot. So actually, with regard to the world changing, yes, so many brands from 2007, 2008 don't still exist, and knock on wood, we both do. How does the financial crisis of 07, 08 compare to what you've been through so far in 2020? Can you hear me?
Well, in 2007, when I opened, I mean, I didn't have anything to compare it to. Is the connection okay?
Yeah, it seems like there's a little bit of a lag, but we have you open twice. It looks like you've got an audio open and a video open. Can I see another little tab for you?
Oh, you know what? I think it's probably my team in Oakland who opened.
Okay, maybe they're hogging our internet.
If I hide it.
It's not a huge deal.
It's not bothersome, so don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah.
So,
there we go.
Where was I? Okay, so when I opened, I didn't really have anything. I had a part-time person. I worked around the clock. I mean, I worked literally every single day, and I went above my store. So I was, uh-oh, is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I rented an apartment above. So I was in the store every day, like until midnight. So I didn't have a comparison, and we were small and growing, and I was able to grow at the pace that was comfortable for me, that worked within my budget, that worked within my bandwidth. I mean, it was just two of us, and we couldn't take on more than we could handle. Fast forward to 2020, I mean, during the entire time I've had my business, almost 13 years, had to lay off my team anyone. And then 2020, COVID happens, and then everything changed. So there was a big shift, because we were able to weather so many different things over the last few years. Like, you just kind of figure it out. But what happened this year, like, put everything to a halt. And we were all in it together. It wasn't one person that wasn't impacted by it around the world. So in that sense, there's comfort in that sense, but there's also this like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? How are we going to get through this?
Totally. So can you talk to us a little bit about, from March until now, early July, you were obviously, like everybody else, closed for 3 months. You've just started reopening Oakland 2 or 3 weeks ago and Palo Alto last week. How did you innovate during the last 3 months? I mean, you have a strong website and you've been really focused on that, but beyond just the e-commerce business, what tricks and tools are you using to survive during these times?
We, so when I found out about COVID, it was February. I skipped Paris market because I was concerned. I was worried. I have a young son, so I was like, I'm not going to travel. And when we closed, March 14th was the date. We closed both stores. I didn't know how long it was going to be. I think like everyone else, I thought maybe I'll be closed for 2 weeks, maybe 1 week. I think we even put a sign up saying we're going to be closed for 1 week.
I packed to go home to Delaware with 1 weekend's worth of clothes and stayed home for 3 months.
We just didn't know.
Yeah.
So we were able, luckily my team was able to build a website before we even closed. So we had revamped our website in February, thank goodness. And we just really started thinking about how we were going to reach customers in this new space, but also being very sensitive to what was going on. It's like, do we really want to be pushing product, not even pushing, but do we want to talk about product when people are suffering and people are sick and losing their job? Like, it was just so much going on. But I also realized like I wanted to make sure that we were going to have a place to come back to once we were able to open. So I knew I had to push through. My team and we worked with a very small team, 3 of us in the very beginning. And we were just like, okay, we have to just, figure out unique ways to create content. So whether that's doing like a Sherri at home series where I'm taking my iPhone and, shooting myself on a 10-minute timer, let's do it. And then early on, we started doing these IG series with some of the designers that we worked with pretty much like week 2. And I would go to the store. We went to the store later. So I would do it from home. And then we would just talk about fashion. And it was like a 30-minute way to sort of escape everything that was going on and really talk about and the garments and hear the stories about the designers. And then we just started thinking about like, okay, in this digital way, in this digital space, how are we going to reach consumers? We started shipping out boxes to people. Our clients like kept us going. They were like, we believe in you. We want to make sure that you all are okay. And they allowed us to like ship them product on approval, and they, in the comfort of their home, where they were able to select what they wanted. And like, it was like all of our clients were, accepting boxes from us.
Did you previously have a robust box try-on business, or is this a new development from COVID?
We worked with just a handful of clients that way, because whether or not they were just could never get to the store because of their busy schedules, or they lived out of state, we would just send them product. But it's nothing like it is today. And it's something that we're continuing to do and have also like created services around it now.
Yeah, your website actually explains it beautifully with regard to, how much you spend to then, get a box, try it on, send it back. And It's an amazing model. And I guess desperate times call for innovation, but it's a great innovation that you've.
Thank you. Yeah, we've worked really hard on that, and just thinking about every little part of it, the price, like the frequency, so many different things that we're thinking about that went into it.
Yeah, I think one thing that also really must help your client business is that McMullen carries lines that not every luxury multi-brand boutique in this country does. So you have some more prolific lines like Friends of School or something like that, which we all know and love, but then you also have worked really hard to discover some lesser known lines, including some both African ones and then brands by people of color, which you're, correct me if I'm wrong, like one of the only distributors for in the US. And I assume that really helps the private client business, because if someone's looking for something unique like that, they're coming to you to get it because you have these brands with pretty limited distribution. So can you talk both about supporting brands by people of color, and also how you even go about finding these lines?
Yeah, sure. I mean, even from the very beginning, I was always interested in the discovery and finding, you know, these smaller brands that I talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Just being a Black woman, also, for me, it was really important to make sure that I was supporting Black designers.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like one of the first designers I carried in the store was Tracy Reese.
Oh, yeah.
And she was I think she was probably the only one, you know, at her scale, doing what she was doing at the time when I opened. So I mean, I still remember the first piece that I sold of Tracy's in my store, and I know the client who still has it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Black sequin capelet, that is a classic and a timeless. I remember looking at Tracy thinking like, this is amazing. There, you know, I wish there were more Black designers, and how do I find them? Because back then there was no Instagram, there was no social media. So I really relied on showrooms to help with the discovery. I mean, today it's completely different because I can discover someone on Instagram, or just talking to, you know, a fashion friend who knows someone who's hand knitting these amazing sweaters. And I'm like, I want those in my store too. So that's always been important to me. It's like finding the designers, designers of color, particularly Black designers, because I know how hard it is just to be able to get our foot in the door. And when I'm thinking about smaller brands, I always take myself to that place where, you know, I was once starting my business in 2007 and someone believed in me. You know, my landlord like believed in what I was doing when I didn't have, you know, a lot of money in my bank account to say to him, like, I have 2 years worth of, you know, savings or whatever for rent. But there are people that have believed in me along the way. So if you just think about that when you're working with sort of these emerging and smaller brands, like everyone deserves a chance and a shot. Yeah. So that's been a part of our business for so long. And from the very beginning, it's like the discovery and finding those designers.
For some of the people listening, who are some of your favorite, both past and present, Black designers or Black-owned brands that you've either currently worked with or worked with in the past 10 years?
Oh gosh. Well, Tracy Reese, you know, thinking about, I still have a dress of hers that is a shift dress. It's like, I don't know if they call it like fit and flare, but it's like fit it through here and kind of goes out this way, a floral, pink and green. Christopher John Rogers comes to mind. He is definitely one of my favorites.
That pink and orange dress you have, or maybe it's separate, like get me back into a body where I can wear that dress. It's amazing. It's fabulous. It's awesome.
We're all around the house in that dress.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. It's pure.
It's just pure joy. And there's Lauren Godfrey, who is a really wonderful jewelry designer, fine jewelry designer. I know that you all posted her. We did an event with her last year. She's from the Bay. Amazing, super talented designer. There is a designer, Macchio.
Also love.
Who is like one of my favorite designers.
You were first to bring Macchio to the US, right?
Yeah. So we did a collaboration. So we launched her collection in the US in 2016. And I remember seeing her collection at a showroom that I went to frequently. And it was sort of like pushed in, I shouldn't say pushed. It was in sort of in a corner of a showroom. And her pieces are gorgeous. Like you really need to see them. You need to have some space in between you need to really appreciate them. And I found out a little bit about the designer through the showroom. And I remember like thinking after I left New York, came back to my store, and I was looking at the pictures, because I still print out pictures and I take pictures and I print them, and I like to just lay them out on the floor with a glass of wine. And I'm like, oh, I'm still thinking about this, and like, maybe this doesn't make it, maybe I'll, but I remember seeing her collection and thinking, like, this is something that's really standing out in my mind, but I wanted to see it another season before committing to it. So I went back to the showroom the next season and it wasn't there. And no one, knew if she had produced samples for the next season. And I reached out to her on Instagram, and I was like, every few days sending her messages saying, I want to see your collection. Like, I hope she doesn't think I'm stalking her, but it was, it worked because she responded. And then we ended up getting on a call and just talking about everything outside of fashion. We were talking about, being women in the industry and like everything that comes with that, and being a Black woman in this space. And then I like fell in love with her before even seeing her new collection. And so at the end of the call, I said, I'm going to send you my account number, where are your samples, send me everything. She sent me her samples, and I was literally like going through it like it was Christmas. This is amazing. We need to have this. So I called her and I said, we need to do a launch. I want to launch your collection. My clients, I know, will love it. And like, let's make this happen. She's like, really? Like, yes. Like, let's make this happen. So I called my friend Stephanie Horton, who at the time was the CMO of Farfetch. And I said, Stephanie, let's do this launch together so you all could launch it more on a global scale. And then we would launch it exclusively in the stores in the US. And she got behind it, and Maki came out, and we had a beautiful event, and we had a dinner. And I mean, it was such a success story. Women loved it. Yeah. And we carried it a few seasons. But it was just such a special time.
That's cool. It's remarkable. Yeah. And it definitely sounds like such a win for both you and her, which I love. It's really refreshing to hear about experiences in fashion that are so like collaborative and kind of enjoyed by both parties. And one thing we have for you, speaking of such wins, are like, what are the other really high points? We've been talking so much to people about COVID and like how people are getting through this very struggling time. But what are some of the high points that you've had in your 10 plus year career? And it can be anything. It could be like, launching a line in the US, which is a huge deal, or it could be a team dinner where everyone just got along so harmoniously and you felt like amazing for having all these great employees around the table. Can you speak to some of those kind of wins?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many wins along the way. I remember my first local publication in San Francisco Chronicle. It was called Window Shopping, and it was the first, I think it came out in 2008, that spring. And I just remember that feeling like, oh my gosh, we've been published. Yeah. Like, people are paying attention to what we're doing. And then we were published in Lucky Magazine back in, I think, 2008, which was our first national.
Yeah.
Lucky. Lucky win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lucky did a feature on the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland, Bay Area shops, and we were featured in that. And I remember that just like feeling like, okay, we're doing something right. Yeah. And then, moments where I had like more money, where I could actually expand my team, going from 2 people to like 4 people. Like, that to me felt really good, because it meant that, I could help support someone else. And then our 10-year anniversary happened. And I remember that moment feeling like I've got to slow down, because I've just been running. I don't know where the last 10 years went. It just happened. And I remember saying, I'm going to take in this time. I'm going to really like sit with this and celebrate it and honor this time, because, you don't see that a lot. You don't see an independent store, specialty store, have that much life. So for us, it was a really special moment, and we properly celebrated. We had lots of friends come out. You all made me a very special necklace. It was actually, you recreated the necklace, the first necklace that I bought from you in '08.
Yeah.
In '08? No, when was our first collection together?
11, because a dear friend and customer of yours and now ours is I'm not supposed to say names on Zoom. It's like against the privacy policies. But you know who you are, and you're asking about another collaboration piece. And Sherri and I were just speaking in our Zoom market appointment a few weeks ago. Next spring will mark 10 years of working together. So our brands are both a little bit over 10 years old. As of next spring, we hit the 10-year mark as a duo. And for any of Sherri's customers on this call, start putting in your votes for what you want your collaboration piece to be, because there will be a McMullen-Lizzie Fortunato collaboration in early 2021. It'll probably be our first post-baby collaboration.
Yeah, and we've created some good ones in the past, and they sell quickly, so maybe we need to do a few more. But it's always really fun working with buyers like you who have like such a good eye and also really know what your customer wants. You can tell that you are very in touch with your clients because you nail it. So I'm game.
Absolutely. So as we said, start brainstorming what you guys want now. Lizzie and I and Sherri will put our heads together, and we'll make a reason to celebrate next year.
Totally. So Catherine just mentioned that you guys did your market appointment over Zoom, which is crazy, but I presume that's how you're doing most of your buying right now. Do you have plans to travel at all in September, or do you see this being the way of the future? Talk to us about how you're navigating that. And also, I'm sure with fashion, it's so ready to wear, and particularly, it's so hard not to be able to touch and feel clothes. Are any designers like shipping you boxes of samples, or how is it working for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of that. It's the only time I missed market was right after I had Frederick, because I couldn't travel. He was born in February, so I missed all of market. But I've attended, like, I haven't really missed one. So we've been doing Zoom appointments. I started doing them in February when I didn't go to Paris. So that was sort of the start of buying for what season? For fall. And that's kind of our new way of doing things. Things are so much more advanced now. I mean, even just the pictures, doing 360 pictures on models is amazing. Like, you can really see it. And if you're familiar with a collection, you know the fit, you know the fabrications, you know the designers, then it's much easier. I think it would be difficult to bring on too many new designers without having, like, understand the fit and the fabric and that type of thing. But I am having some designers just send me samples, some smaller. In fact, we just got a box of some beautiful knitwear that we're going to go through. Yeah.
So in addition to, obviously, hopefully market does return once people start to travel again. It might never be as expensive as what it was, where as a West Coaster, you have to go to both New York and Paris, maybe even London and Milan multiple times a year. So I imagine that might naturally scale back a little bit post this period anyway. But what other changes do you anticipate? Are you going to bring your budget in tighter because you're going to sort of grasp yourself for the next time a disaster hits? Or are you going to be more aggressive? Are you going to buy differently because people want more athleisure, or are you going to give them more color because they want more joy? How has this entire experience shaped how you think you'll kind of approach your role as a buyer in the coming 12 or 18 months?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely won't be traveling as much. I also feel like we were just traveling too much anyway. As a buyer, it's like I was gone every month. And I really missed just being in the store and being with the customers. And I was either placing an order for one season. It was just a lot. And then there was another market, and then there are additional markets that were happening. And it was really expected for us to be there and to participate in this. And the pace of the industry, honestly, it was just too fast. I think everyone, this pandemic really allowed us to, like, refocus, slow things down, enjoy the pieces that we have in the store instead of thinking about the next season so quickly and having this pressure of like, sell it so fast before one of the big majors department stores marks it down, and then we have to compete with that. Yeah. So I think it's really been a way for retailers and partners, designers, creatives, everyone in the industry to really think about like new ways, more cost efficient ways to do business. And also think about like how much product we're actually putting out into the world. Do we really need all of these things? And like, you know, probably fewer and better pieces make more sense. And we've always been a store that's, you know, we're not about trendy and, you know, obviously never fast fashion, but we really think about the pieces that our customers are going to buy. They're going to have and enjoy in their closet forever. I mean, I'm always repeating things that I have and I love and I enjoy. And then I'm going to add pieces in every season because I love fashion. Right. And that's who our customer is. Mm-hmm. We don't want to tell our customer that today something costs $500, but not really. And, you know, in 12 weeks, it doesn't. It costs half of that. Because I do think that customers will start to think about, is this really valued? Is this the true value? And I want to say to them, yes, it is, because of all the work that goes into it. And this is a way for me to pay my team and for us to have a business, for the designers to pay themselves and to pay the makers who are doing it. Like all of those things are impacted when we start marking down product and devaluing product. So I think just like thinking about that more, and I've talked to designers about it, it's something that's always been top of mind for me, talking about markdowns. We don't need to mark it down. What's the markdown structure? So I think the industry is for sure going to shift. We are already doing it. Like we're no longer playing into this this game of keeping up with some of the big brands and how they do business, because I also think it's an antiquated model. You know, I think as a specialty store, we can think about doing business with partners in other parts of the world that are not necessarily the same as we do business with people here in the States. You know, maybe they're going to deliver once a year, and that should be okay.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take that much time to make it happen and create something beautiful and magical that someone's going to love forever.
Yeah. Are you optimistic? So in the beginning of COVID, a widely circulated sort of letter and initiative went around from Altazora, Dries Van Noten, a bunch of designers signed on, as well as some retailers. And it was all about crucial shifts to the industry. So changing the markdown schedule, having it be more like France, where you have 2 semi-annual sales a year for a week or 2, changing the fashion week schedule so you're not traveling 6 times to New York and 6 times to Paris, and really dealing with head on a lot of the issues that you're talking about. And I guess I'm wondering, I think right now everybody has slowed down a bit. I think that, I mean, luckily for Lizzie and me, it sort of coincided with this pre-nesting period that we're having. So it's been sort of one hand not slowing down and a lot of adrenaline to keep the business going, but also sort of slowing down in the sense of what you're saying. Like, we're all going to get through this, and we have to reflect on where we are and how we sort of treat the next 6 to 12 months. But are you optimistic that small boutiques can set the pace and you won't do the sale cadence, and a customer might come in and say, yeah, but Nordstrom's online had that at 30% off flash sale? Do you think we can start to make a change as the small guys? And we're with you. We don't mark down our product. It already costs so much to make in the first place that it's not sort of viable for us. But are you optimistic about that change, or do you think that everybody will kind of have amnesia a year from now and kind of return to the bad habits that we were in the last 5 years?
Well, we are setting the pace. I think if we have decided, you know, our businesses and so many other of our partners, we have decided that this is just what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think other businesses, hopefully they will follow suit, but Like we are the change makers. Like we are the ones who are going to set the pace for the industry going forward. And this is what it has to be.
Mm-hmm. I think there's something a little bit maybe ironic about the fact that it's sort of a return to shopping small, and it's the boutiques that are our lifeline right now. I mean, and people kind of have heard this from me from prior CWCs that happened more in March and April when the hammer was really falling on Lizzie and me, and the department stores were calling and slashing orders and things like that. And I mean, the ultimate irony is that small brands, small retailers who have bootstrapped their way and don't have, you know, VC funding, were respecting their orders, were paying their bills. You know, maybe they were asking for later terms, but you guys all sort of maintained the relationship. And it was the really big guys who sort of cut their losses. Yeah. And I think as a brand, that's making us think long and hard about who our true partners will be when we come out the other side and what kind of terms we want to work on with them. You know, maybe it's, you don't get access to the full collection, or, you know, you've got to pay up front or something like that, because it's just ironic to get burned by the guys that seem to have all the cash in the deep pockets.
Right.
Absolutely. And I guess speaking of that corporate world, is there anything you missed from it? Going through this as a small business owner, furloughing your team, having the stress as a single mom running a business, do you miss the structure of the corporate world? So are there one or two things that you sort of wish you still had? And then on the flip side, what are the best parts of doing it, being your own boss?
Oh gosh, no, I don't miss the corporate world. I mean, I think maybe in certain stages of being a business owner, like I missed having a consistent paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, when I wasn't paying myself every pay, because that is just the nature of being a small business. You just take care of everyone else before you take care of yourself in the beginning. But I don't miss that corporate structure. I mean, one of the reasons why I got out of it, because I wanted to be able to have more autonomy. I wanted to be able to have a point of view and be respected for that point of view. And that was the reason why I was brought on in those roles, but never really quite feeling like I could really like create. And that's what I love about what I do. I mean, working with designers like you, and I mean, so many people that I've, you know, have become dear friends, and we're all like going through this together, and we're I mean, it's truly a partnership. And I always say that it goes beyond the product. It is really the people that you're doing this with, and it makes all the difference. And I don't know if I would necessarily have that same feeling working in a larger corporate environment.
I think I love that you talk about point of view, because one thing that you do that big retailers don't do is that you really have a face for your store. So you're on your Instagram. You've been doing amazing videos from your kitchen that we love, where you're wearing fabulous clothes and cooking and dancing. And what's some of the feedback that you've gotten about being kind of like the face of your business? Do people like seeing you on the Instagram? I imagine they do. I certainly do.
I think so. I think they do. We've gotten some good feedback on that. I think in many ways it's relatable.
Yep.
You know, being a working mom, you know, someone who has curves and who, you know, I don't know, sometimes I don't fancy up my hair sometimes. So I think that like people they can relate to that, and it's not just about the glitz and glamour of it. It's like a bit of it is fantasy, of course, because that's fashion, but it's also like, this is real life. I love dancing with my son, and I'm enjoying cooking, and yes, I've gained a little weight, and it's okay, and I'm okay with it. And you know, it's all of those things that I think our customers really just relate to.
I love that. You posted a few weeks ago a white shirt series. You had just gotten in, I guess, a great assortment of white shirts, and it resonated perfectly. I mean, I think if you had done it on a stick skinny model and it sort of felt aspirational in a way that I was never going to aspire, I might not have lusted after every one of those white shirts. But then seeing you just on your stool with the light coming into the kitchen with a glass of wine, you can picture yourself that way. And I think balancing that aspiration with you know, real life is important, because you're right, there is fantasy, it's fashion, it's supposed to be fun, but also it can't be so unattainable that we scare everybody away from trying it. And we often say that. I mean, sometimes people see a huge necklace and say, oh, I don't wear big necklaces, that's not me. And Lizzie and I are like, look, we're 5'3", we're pretty petite. Yeah. Don't be scared of a big necklace. Once you put it on, I've worn this. I literally moved apartments today wearing the Capri necklace. So, hence my sweaty look. I moved. She's having a baby next week. You know, we're hustling. But I love the approachability. And again, it seems like that might be something that's also come a little bit from COVID, because you've been at home with limited resources on social media, but it's worked really well.
We actually just had a great question come in with regard to what Catherine's saying. And then a participant is asking if, Sherri, you have any tips for feeling comfortable in front of the camera. She says, as a business owner, we're supposed to build the connection, but sometimes it's scary to be vulnerable in front of the camera. So any tips?
Oh gosh. You know, I actually get really nervous talking in, when I do events at the store. I do get really nervous in the very beginning until I start talking, and then I just kind of go with it. But I think nerves are fine. Nerves are actually really good. I think it gives you that like kick going into it, into whatever you're doing, whatever you're speaking about. But yeah, I mean, nerves are good. Like, embrace that.
Yeah. What about when you're just doing like the self-time camera and you're posing as like your model? How do you make yourself both look beautiful and natural and give yourself over to all your Instagram followers in such a sort of admirable way?
Well, I think just, the ones where I was just standing in, I would pick a time, the same time every day. And I wouldn't really do a lot of movement. So it was more about just the light coming in, and the expression on my face was like, it was always telling, because there were moments when I was like sad because I had been in the house and I was like wanting to be outside and be free from everything that was going on. And it was you could see it on, and like going back, you could see it in my eyes. Or there were moments when I just wanted to dance because that's how I was feeling at that moment, and like crank up the music. And I think it's just going for it. And it's okay to be vulnerable and letting that part of yourself show. I think that's sometimes the most beautiful part, is, you know, just knowing that we're all human and we all have so many different facets of ourselves, and every part is a part that we should embrace and love. And vulnerability is like, it's a beautiful thing because it shows that we're human.
Totally. I absolutely love that you put yourself on camera so much, especially being a Black woman business owner in the industry, which Catherine and I think there are too few of, and
we know that there are too few of,
and we do spend a lot of time reviewing our stock list and saying, like, why aren't we selling to more specialty stores owned by Black women? And sadly in America there aren't a ton of them, and we're wondering why that is. Is it access to capital? Is it that some of these luxury programs like the one you did at Neiman Marcus aren't hiring Black women out of college? What do you attribute it to?
So there are a few things. I always say that it should start, the recruitment part and the mentoring part should really start at a much earlier age, earlier than college.
Yeah.
Because, like, especially if you're going into this industry, you know, not everyone can afford to go to a really expensive design school, or there are so many talented students that are at design academies in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, we have a school, the Academy of Arts, just blocks down from my store. We work closely with their fashion department. We do internships every year. I think it's important to really embrace young people who are interested and help them find the way, you know, and give them the real thing, not give them the fantasy of what it's like to be in the industry and to be in fashion, but really like help them sort of maneuver, you know, guide them, connect them. So mentorship is one part of it. And also I think just companies recruiting from schools outside of like Parsons or the big institute at the Academy of Art in San Francisco, and so many of the, you know, the well-known design schools. I mean, there are HBCUs, historically Black colleges, that companies can recruit from and find like real strong, talented, brilliant people. So it's really like thinking about, you know, recruitment there from colleges. And then once someone's in college, it's mentoring them. I mean, helping them find mentors that will help guide them. Once they're in the industry, it's helping access to capital. Like there's just, that's a really big thing. That was, you know, a real struggle for me over the years, is really being able to just go into a bank and be able to get money because, you know, because I'm a Black woman.
Yeah.
And, you know, the stats show that Black women are the least funded group, yet we are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, yet we are the least funded. And then if you think about VCs, like less than 1% of funding goes to Black women. And we know that Black women are like doing the work. Like you see it in every part of life. Yet we are the last to be supported and funded. So it's really a responsibility for like everyone's responsibility to really think about ways to help and support our community. And it starts, I mean, it's, you know, schooling, education, mentoring, access to capital. And also once someone is like in your store, making sure that they can sustain their business, because there may be a great designer, but maybe they don't have the strongest business side. So it's like, how can we help those designers, making sure that they can have a long-term business and not, you know, a couple of years and then they're gone.
That's a really great point.
And there's so many ways. It's just like designers, if a designer is being inspired, I mean, there's so many times where I'll go into a showroom and I'll see a mood board, and I see the inspiration obviously comes from a Black woman in, say, Kenya. And I would get really excited. But if those companies don't have Black people working for them, like that is telling.
Yeah.
Or if they aren't working with those artisans, those women that have inspired their work, if they don't work with them in some way, I mean, there's so many different things that we can do to support one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
As women, like this is what we do.
Right.
This is in our DNA.
Not like my mom, who you know well, and you guys speak the same language. This is in your DNA, each other's DNA.
But I remember like when I was opening my flagship store in 2018 in downtown Oakland, I was searching for mannequins, and I was thinking, gosh, there are no mannequins of color. Like there's like white matte mannequins, and there were no, and that was it. It was like shiny black or matte white and nothing in between. Terrible. Like, you know what, we should have mannequins painted in different shades of brown, because for me it was really important for, you know, if a young Black woman came into my store, she felt like she could see herself in this space, in this world of luxurious, beautiful things. She also felt like she could have a space in this. She could see herself. She could see herself represented. We have pictures of my family on the walls. This is, you know, my grandmother in Seminole, Oklahoma, my mother in Oklahoma, my aunts. These are like the women who have inspired me my entire life in fashion and in life. And I wanted young women to be able to see that and relate to that in some way, and not feel like this industry is exclusive and not for them.
I love that. And I love your point about starting early. We really have been talking about a lot of initiatives we can make, and one is not just at the college level. Start at the high school level. Let's offer for young students to come on a day of a lookbook shoot to understand what that behind the scene looks like. And like you said, it's not all glamour. Like half the time you're steaming garments.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important. We have 1 or 2 last questions, but I don't want to run out of time because somebody very patiently 30 minutes ago asked us to share the designer of the fabulous top you're wearing. So will you tell it to the audience, Sherri?
Oh, sure. This is Akira Naka. So it's a new Japanese line that we've been carrying since spring, and
Awesome.
we love it. And I met the designer in Paris last year, and just hearing him talk about the collection and the way he designs for women, and his whole team, he has all like women on his team, and so he is just very much in tune with shapes and things that we want for our bodies. So thank you.
Yes, it's amazing.
Sherri, this is amazing. You make 1 hour go faster than just about anyone I know. I feel like I could stay on and talk to you forever, and we are running out of time. We have a few more quick questions that we're going to try and squeeze in before Zoom cuts us off. But again, for anyone who is listening, share this with your friends. We'll be posting on Saturday morning. One question from a participant just now is, what is the #1 way that white women can be more effective allies for you, a Black woman in fashion?
It's a great question. I mean, I would say it's supporting, and if we are a company that you believe in our values, you believe in what we stand for, which I think is like more important than just the items that we have in the store. Like knowing that first, like if that aligns with who you are then support us, like buy from us, and knowing that you're going to support the people that work with us, that work really hard. I mean, we are a small team. We all love what we do. So that would be one of the biggest things. It's like, buy from us and support us in that way.
I love that. You are such a pioneer, both in your point of view and also just how you present your clothes, your shades of black mannequins, which we absolutely adore.
I love that.
Your face on the Instagram. I think everything you're doing sets such a fabulous example, and we are so proud to work with you. Our lightning round before we let you go is first question, favorite article of clothing in your closet right now?
Christopher John Rogers strawberry dress.
Oh, I want it.
We want it.
Favorite brand to dress your almost 5-year-old son in?
Almost 6.
Almost 6-year-old. No, he's 4.
No, almost 5. Almost 5.
Okay. Cute.
Monoprix is where I would shop. I mean, I would just, and you'll know, it's like, Monoprix it's like, it's a store in France. They carry groceries, but they also have food, but they also have clothing. So I would just stock up every time I went. Because
we find our godson Monoprix for years. Yep. And it's like €12 and it looks like it's €100.
It's great.
So affordable, and it's like well made. And then I also support another store, a local store called Silver Moon, that's been around forever in Oakland. So whatever she has there, I buy for him.
Love it. Okay, brand that you don't currently carry, but that you would love to one day carry in McMullen.
I don't know. I don't think I have an answer.
That's wonderful. You have everything you want.
Yeah, I feel like we have all the brands that we should be carrying right now.
Fabulous.
That's wonderful.
Yay or nay on athleisure during COVID?
Nay.
Okay. We're not even doing athleisure during pregnancy, so we're with you.
Fine if it's whatever makes you happy, I say wear, even if it's like a ball gown, a long skirt, and you're wearing it with sneakers or Birkenstocks, like whatever makes you happy. But for me, no.
Good.
Cool. And then the place that you're dying to travel after COVID is over and you can get on an airplane again.
Mexico.
Nice.
Yeah, Mexico or Spain. France, I'm missing too. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Sherri, we could do this for another hour.
No, I'm curious. What about you? Because you all travel so much.
Oh my gosh, there are so many places I want to go right now. Greece is on the top of my list, but also Spain. I wanted to explore Spain more. So, and I speak a little bit of Spanish, so that helps.
Yeah, and I think Nick, my husband and I were talking about our dream destination right before COVID hit, and we're both really lusting for a like a Scandinavian, Northern European, like high design type trip.
Nice.
So I think that would be an inspiring place that Lizzie and I are